Hello, this is Dread from Epoch Builds, and in today's video topic, we're going to tackle a very common question I get. Why do my minions keep dying? Well, we can tackle this topic with a few different angles, but I'll be sure to cover the most important aspects of minion defensive scaling in the current state of Last Epoch. As someone who has played a lot of different minion builds over the last 2 years, I'd like to think myself as an expert of the matter, as much like everyone else, I really hate it when my minions are constantly dying. So the first and most important part of minion defensive scaling is attribute scaling. If you did not know, most minion skills can scale extra flat HP per attribute point, usually attunement or intelligence, but it can be strength as well. This amount is usually the same amount of flat HP you get per level. So for instance, if my Stormcrows gain 8 HP per character level, they will get around 800 HP just for being at level 100. At just 50 extra attunement slash strength, they can have 50% more health, equaling to another 400 flat HP, which is then multiplied by minion increased health and of course, minion more health modifiers in the tree. This is the biggest problem I see when people send me planners, is no attribute scaling. It is not only the best way to build flat HP on your minions, it's also the most efficient way at scaling damage as well, since if you have like 50 attributes, that's another 200% increased damage for the minion, which is global, so it affects all portion of its damage, which is very hard to come by. This becomes way more important for when you're playing Acolyte, as getting 80 to 100 intelligence is very easy to achieve, so having 400% increased damage for free, while also scaling flat HP for your minions, this is the first building block of making sure your minions don't just instantly die. The second part of minion defenses is critical strike avoidance. Do you want your minions to take insane amounts of damage for absolutely no reason? Then don't build critical strike avoidance for them. They'll die. Wonderful. Sadly, minions like Acolytes have a lack of this, while Primalists have them on idols. But we have the ace in the hole, Ribbons of Blood. Most builds run 100% crit avoid or wear fiery dragon shoes or use a two-hander, so you are probably in the habit of taking increased crit chance monoliths and thinking, free modifiers! Not for your minions though. They will be taking huge crits from enemies and can easily be the difference between life and death for your little pets. Ribbons of Blood makes it so your minions cannot be crit. It is almost mandatory on any minion build where you want to be pushing Corruption, Arena, T4 Jurla, T4 Dungeons, whatever you're doing. And thankfully, this is much better than before, as you can get LP on it, preferably with like minion HP, some attributes, something like that. And farming Fall the Outcast for A-Bomb's boss uniques is great, and it's easier than ever. So it's just simply a unique you cannot go without if you want to make sure your minions can tank for you. The third part is sustain. Whether you go for minion health regen, leech, or simply just resummoning them, mainly what Acolyte does, if you have both of what I listed before, this is probably where your minions are failing. Not having enough sustain is a large problem on a lot of different minion builds, and it's solved in 20 different ways, each way being specific for each minion. Heck, even Raptor builds just use a Hikaru's Phoenix to constantly revive him from the brink of death. So it's really hard to just generically talk about this part. But I will say, minion health regen is the duct tape of the minion tankiness world. 2 T5 rolls on it on your minion gear is the difference between constantly resummoning your minions or just relaxing as they do all the work for you. Leech is great too, because most of the time your minions are doing damage, and plenty of the passive trees have support for this. One of the strongest sustain sources for minions comes from poison minions utilizing lethal concentration, as damage over time leech is really strong as of making this video. Just food for thought. The fourth part is there are just things that will kill your minions and you just have to accept it. Unless you're playing with lethal concentration or manifest armor, bets are your minions will just die to raptor bleeds, poison gorgon tornadoes, or the worst, T4 Jurla's death void beams. Now we have some counters for these. Jurla's Obsession is a unique pair of gloves that drops from Necromancer Jurla in the Temporal Sanctum, and its stats will always be added to your minions. This is very important, as damage resistance is the only way to combat dots on minion builds, unless you're playing something stupid like A-Bomb or Manifest Armor. And being able to slap on a Fizz Res roll or a Void Res roll makes your minions way more combat ready versus Bleed Raptors and Jurla Beams. It also just comes with 40% Void Res as well, so you could put Void Res or you could put Physical Res on it and just have both. It's actually really good. You can also tech Fire Res gloves for the T4 Solar Gambler. Poison? Yeah, there's not really much you can do about that. Fuck Gorgons. Another part, and I know this is going to be hard, it just blew my mind when I thought of this. Just don't die. I know, this is obvious, but apparently not so much because I see it all the time. My minions are dying. I look at their planner. Their minions have significantly more health and DR than they do. If you die, it's the end. Capiche? Make sure to prioritize yourself before your minions. You can always resummon them. You can't resummon yourself. Yet. The biggest problem I see is building no sustain. You can't just walk into a monolith, expect your minions to tank all the brunt of the enemies, and not die without any defenses. Whether it be health regen with Vessel of Strife, Usurper's Mandate, or healing, you need to have a way of not dying. Turns out, not dying leads to a much better experience in Last Epoch, especially with its objective-based nature. The last thing I will touch on, a thing that many people overlook and will get caught with, is enemies focus on players' monolith modifiers. Avoid this modifier like the plague. If you're instantly dying when your minions engage a pack of archers, it's because of this. If that Bleed Raptor walks up to you and smacks you, even though you have 15 skeletons in the way, this is why. If you're playing A-Bomb and watch a Diamond Matron walk up to you and smack you, this is why. Enemies focus on players is absolutely disgusting for builds that are reliant on minions to tank for them. Abomination. So if you just simply try to not take this mod, your health, mental and physical and in-game, will be much better. Remember, if you die, then your minions failed. Hopefully these tips helped you out if you're a new player. If you enjoyed the content and want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe, as that's the best way to support the channel currently and tell YouTube that I'm doing a good job. And it also keeps bringing videos like this to your sub box. With all that being said, this has been Dread from Epoch Builds, off to go make more builds, hopefully a minion build soon.